Three, two, one, take.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are here to discuss a subject which is slightly grim, even more sensitive, something that many of us encounter on a day to day basis. It is not just about crime and punishment, it's also about justice and lack of it. The subject at hand is provocative but necessary. We are looking into and addressing one question, and that is the police in Goa only for the powerful? There are no easy answers to this, but the trends that have emerged over the last few years in Goa seem to point that that is indeed the case. We will get into this whole gamut of complexities that surround this particular topic, and the subject at hand needs a lot of deep diving. We are lucky and really honored to have a very established panel of stakeholders and experts and people who've indeed been there, done that, seen it all in their various capacities as activists, lawyers, journalists, police officers, and all of them are on this panel, who have not only experienced it all, but probably have also felt challenged in their work because of this, and deep down within share the same frustrations that many of us do as we look at a changing Goa with all its pitfalls and problems. I welcome Bosco George, who needs no introduction in Goa. He retired as the DIG of police, as an IPS officer, but Bosco has been part of the system for a very long time, having served in virtually every sensitive position that you can talk of, from the district to the crime to FRRO and everything else. But Bosco has risen up the ranks and is one of the proud sons of Goa. Next to him is a colleague and friend, Shweta Bajaj, who's a very senior journalist who's worked in national and international networks. She's a documentary filmmaker, and if I may also state that she has worked very closely and sensitively in this Marian Borgo case, which has shaken Goa to a large extent, which of course we will touch upon that case briefly. But I'll admit, and I'll certainly confess, that that probably was one of the triggers which led to us, coming to this table and saying that, look, let us look at all such cases, and do we really need to address this question of the police being for the powerful a little more seriously. Cyril Fernandez is a Chicali-based human rights activist, but though he's based there, but he's worked throughout the state in his various capacities, looked at various cases and fights, and is a soldier for human rights in Goa. And specifically, he has been a long time crusader fighting for justice for that little school girl in Vasco who was raped exactly 10 years ago, and we still haven't found the rapist. And he has, of course, crusaded on that for a long time. So thank you, Cyril, for making time. And last is again another friend, very solid professional, Ryan Menezes, senior advocate, who has, of course, worked on many such cases, needless to say, knows the law inside out, and would throw a lot of professional insights into the subject at hand. I will actually start with Ryan. Ryan, if you can just respond to the overall premise of what I've said so far, and lay the ground for many of the points that I have essentially covered, addressing the basic question of why does the police lean towards the powerful, if that is indeed the case?
There is, Sujay, a perception that the police today exist only for the powerful. It may be difficult to state that as an absolute proposition of fact, but the fact does remain. It comes across to us very often that in certain cases they decline to act. In certain cases they rush to act. There are a number of reasons for this. One of them perhaps is the interference in their working from above them. The action or inaction of the police could be because there is pressure from above them to act or not to act. The other reasons that could be there for this is, in a given case, obviously the dishonesty of the officer concerned. I mean, he may be offered an incentive to act or not to act. So eventually that gives us the illusion or that he's acting only for the powerful. What I'm trying to say over here is it is sometimes it relates to power. It is in other times that it may relate to money. But of course, beyond this, there would be instances where the police officials have acted fairly. Perhaps some systemic changes are required, and in my opinion, starting where we have to start is to insulate the police from the political structure that exists above them. The second place we have to go is to make them aware of what the law mandates. On registrations of FIRs, the Supreme Court is quite clear that if a complaint clearly discloses an FIR, they have to register it. They cannot embark upon preliminary inquiries except in certain exceptional cases. Generally, if the cognizable offence is disclosed, they have to register it. If they are made aware of this and that they, by not registering an FIR, when a cognizable offence is disclosed, and that they would be in contempt of the Supreme Court judgment, perhaps it might evoke a different response. There are other matters like uploading of FIRs, like the Arnesh Kumar judgment on when they can arrest and when they cannot. Perhaps there is the need also to make them aware of all these directions of the Supreme Court that pretty much lay out clearly for them on how they are supposed to act when seized of criminal cases that they have to investigate.
I'll get a quick response from Bosco and then the others on this.
At the outset, let me say I don't represent the police, so I can't speak on behalf of the police. But as a police officer who has served with Goa Police, I will say yes. I agree with Ryan. We have aberrations in our system, in our police saying. But then, by and large, being a small state, we seem to be accountable for everything. The police. You have RTI, you have the police complaint authority, you have the court, you have the press, name it. And most of the time we are trying to defend ourselves only in this. And there can be some this thing as far as Supreme Court orders and judgments are concerned. By and large, I think no officer would want to overlook these things and be held in contempt for it. But there can be. And officers do, even at our level, we just try to this thing. If it is, and maybe, we take it at a very high level that these things are being complied with. There is possibility it may not be compliant, but I think if it is ever brought to any senior officer's notice, he too would never want to this thing. He can take the person to task. As compared to any other government department, police department is the only department where a person can be suspended on a violation, which I have done it. So our accountability as compared to any other government department is immediate. As far there is no two ways about it. But again, these days, even at the superior officers level, the challenges are arising because of the smallness of the state. And what he says, that it's quite true. I think 41 is being, by and large, the arrest, being compiled, because no one wants. Because these are the lines red lines that we cannot cross. But yeah, we sometimes do have some jokers who may, try to be over enthusiastic in trying to do this. But the experienced officers will never want to get into such a thing. That's what I will say for the
I'll just stick with you for a little longer on this. See, let's also kind of address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is politics and politicians. While one can easily say that every state is inflicted with this political virus, and the lines between the executive, the politician, and the police force, they've blurred completely. Which is why one sees that, if a particular government comes into power, you can from the back of your hand figure out what is going to be the list of transfers that are going to happen. Right from the PI level to the sub-inspector level to, in fact, it is much more at that level than at the level of SPs and DIGs. Okay. There is also, and let us be direct about it, the thing is that, of course, people at the SP level, the DIG and IG level, mainly IPS officers, of course, they come from outside, they come, as a central police force officer. But the problem actually lies below that. Okay. And you've seen both sides as well in your career. So the point here is that don't you think the absolute politicization, I won't even say some politicization, the absolute politicization of the force is actually something that is a ribbon which ties this whole package of mess.
Sujay, through, like when I joined in 87, the transfers of officers of police stations was with the IG. Nobody else.
This was in 87?
87 okay. When I joined. My batchmate on probation was given a posting at Kolba police station. He says, you're going to do it. I mean, the IG himself knew, Goa, small state, we had hardly...
And there was one IG.
One IG, and hardly any police stations were there. So it was not a big thing for the IG to know which officer is capable, which officer is this. Now, that from that status, we have come to an extent where things have changed so drastically that till such time, as I have said before, it is said that the superintendence of the police lies, as long as it is written, lies with the executive, these things are bound to happen. Someone is going to exploit the situation. Right. And take it. You have to change that. Then you can ask the police, you are accountable, now you keep doing it.
Correct.
Otherwise, please address this at a level where it needs to be addressed. Definitely not the police.
Shweta, coming to you, where do you think the problem really lies? Is a big mix of all this? Is it do with politicization of the police? Or there's money power involved, or do you feel that there are a lot of powerful entities who control the government who are not really politicians, who are controlling it from outside? Or now there is a new trend that has now come which completely reverses what I just said. The Delhi walas are coming in and say, look, we've got the IPS officers under our control, we don't need to control anybody else, they'll do the work for us. And this is a normal conversation that happens.
Well, I think Goa's policing troubles are sort of deep. Number one is, of course, there is money. And yes, the politicians are probably not even controlling the policemen. They are just the middlemen to do that. So you will never come to know who the orders are coming from, right? So that's one barrier that lasts. So I'm not sure anymore if politics is really running Goa or, for that matter, this nation. Secondly, like Bosco just said, Goa is a small state, but in the garb of being a small state, a lot of things happened here. And now a greater policing needs. That's why we are seeing Hyderabad police come here and do arrests. That is second biggest challenge. The police force has to be trained with the fact that no, it's no more about a small state. Because it was a small state, a lot of people came in here and it became a hub of crime, so to say. There were people who would do crimes in other states and they would find shelter in Goa. And this trend continues. There was a story recently where two boys in Kochi who ran rampant with crime there then came to Goa and were arrested.
Right.
But they were doing crime here and they were not given a large amount of time in the jail anyway. So these kind of cases need to go down. Number three, the coastal belt needs to be looked at very, very carefully. Yes, there is tourism, and that's why a lot of free hand is given. But there is no doubt that when you have a large number of people come into the state, there is a lot of alcohol consumption, there is a large amount of drug consumption, things can go out of hand. Why we did not have to worry about it so much? Because such a large influx was happening. In 2014, we didn't even have enough flights into Goa.
Right.
But now, with the youngest population in the country, in the world that India has, with everyone coming here, the trouble then just mounts. So the number of police officer also needs to go higher up. I keep seeing now in the coastal belt, there's a lot of people from the narcotics department, and they go into these nightclubs and they're trying to figure out what's happening. But the training remains nil. I've bumped into some of them and had funny conversations, and I understand that there is not much training into doing the job they've been put into. So I think that the three-pronged problem. There's a power struggle,
Issue,
of course,
yes.
and like you said, power comes with money. It's balanced. Secondly, it's no more a small state. In the garb of small state, we probably have international crime syndicates happening in this state. And thirdly, that training of police officers is not of the standards that the state needs.
So
Could
Cyril,
I just
yeah, sure.
add to what
Yes,
you said?
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
It's not only the training that's lacking, it's also the use of technology and the infrastructure.
Right, right.
We are still sending forensic materials
Yes.
to Hyderabad. We've had a lab, but that lab has not been properly equipped, I think, for more than a decade. So that infrastructure, that that greater use of technology,
Right.
things like surveillance cameras all over the city. I believe the person who committed the theft in the Panjim court
Yes.
earlier this month
right.
was tracked with the traffic CCTV cameras. Now imagine if we had CCTVs to cover the entire city. Things like that will make a difference. We need to step up.
Yeah, CCTVs have been
The use of
ostensibly bought but
technology.
not implemented. So, yeah,
We need to
right,
step up the use of technology for surveillance, for investigation, for forensic examination. All this needs to be within the state. If we are dependent on laboratories elsewhere, obviously it delays the
Sure,
investigation.
sure. Cyril, you've been patiently hearing all of us. We'd like your point of view, but I think what we also need to kind of get back to the basic premise that all of this is fine. We understand what the problems are. We are elaborating them rightly so. But somehow the kind of the wheels of justice seem to run according to the pace set by the powerful, and this is kind of being talked about again and again. How does this, supposed manipulation happen? Where if you have some element of power or access to it, then the law will bend towards you. That is something which is being increasingly felt all over Goa. I will give you one interesting example. There was this British, like a elderly drug dealer who's there for a very, very long time, and Shweta, you know this case very well, where he was recently kind of caught and arrested, and he turned around and said, look, if I have been paying your cops for such a long time, this was not, it was not part of the deal to arrest me because I've already paid for it. He literally raised a consumer complaint saying that I've paid for my services, why am I getting arrested? And he was actually called to identify the cops who took money from him. And the cops actually shaved off their mustaches and half their heads to avoid identification. So I'm saying, I'm narrating this incident because it completely sums up visually where the problem lies. So over to you.
See, actually, Sujay, I've heard the other speakers also, and each of them has looked at the police issues at a micro level.
Yes.
So, I, with 40 years of activism in my lifetime of 57 years,
Sure.
I look in a different manner.
Right.
If I look at the macro level of policing
Right.
in India,
Yes, yes.
we'll come to Goa later.
Right.
See, police system in India is a legacy of the British, and that was formed itself to keep the voices suppressed and the powerful running, for the government to do its job and the powerful industry to do its job, and nobody was supposed to question it. We have had independence, and after that nothing has changed. The police continues to support the government and the industry. The industry is itself the criminals, biggest criminals. Don't talk of the small minor criminal. The industry itself is a big criminal in different manners and in different fields. And that's where they need the police to protect their crimes. The government needs the police to protect their crime. So this police will never work for a common man. This is historically, if you see, that is the history of Indian police. And the same applies to Goa. Nothing changes in Goa. Goa is a state by default.
Right.
And therefore the police also is by default. Because it has to be there, it is there. I'll read you all one quote and you can tell me who must have said it. Okay, in Goa. Starts in Konkani, Rajkarni, that's political. राजकारणी police criminal nexus हांची पाळामुळां the roots बरीच खोल गेल्ली आहा. The roots have gone very deep. Political, police and the criminal. Now who could have said it in the context of Goa? You guess and tell me.
You tell me.
Huh?
You tell me.
Mr. Manohar Parrikar
I thought as
as
much.
Chief Minister of Goa in the Assembly when presenting the 13-14 budget. Now when the Chief Minister of Goa admits, then I have nothing more to say. If the police nexus is there or not, that is there every day. You open Herald and you find that. So, but you can't expect anything more than that, because the industry or the criminals control the government controls the police, and government and the industry has to survive. So they will use the police against whoever makes noise. It's a free for all in Goa, and nobody can stop it.
Okay, now I'll get
Show
into
is
a
over.
little more specifics. Yeah, you're right, Cyril. See, the issue is that, okay, now this is a question I'll start with Ryan and then Bosco, and again we'll do the same order, crisscross. See, Ryan, let's look into it purely from the point of law. Okay. Now once a complaint is filed in a police station, there are certain procedures that a police person has to do. Okay. We know of so many cases where this has not been done. The most glaring ones which we see are actual human rights cases. For instance, in the Valpoi police station, you had a Hanumant Parab who was beaten up for protesting against mining trucks going. He has complained of being rampantly beaten up in the police, in the room of the PI, thrashed. There are so many complaints that he has filed. He's gone to the president's office. He's gone to the prime minister's office. There are directions that have come from there to the chief secretary asking them to look into it. Till now, his complaint has not been converted into an FIR. So there are numerous such cases. We recently had an issue of somebody from your fraternity getting brutally assaulted. Okay, we do not know where that case particularly lies. We had an incident where on the middle of the road in near Porvory, a policeman returning from duty stopped a car at a traffic light and thrashed a journalist's nephew or son or whatever. Okay. Now, my point is, these are just stray incidents. I'm sure there'll be multiples of 20 happening like this, where cases are just not registered. And then, of course, recently, I'm mentioning the Marian Morgovic case. I'm asking you not to respond to it, but also I'm saying that also is an incident where there is a complaint lodged and no FIR filed. So, if you could respond to this generally as to what aspects of law are getting violated.
The law, that is section 154 of the Criminal Procedure Code, contemplates that when an information of a cognizable offence is given to the police station, it has to be reduced into writing, and that constitutes the registration of an FIR in the prescribed register, obviously. That it is a statutory obligation has been laid down very clearly in a number of judgments of the Supreme Court. The last being the Constitution Bench judgment in Lalita Kumari's case. I believe that was 2013. There are earlier judgments which go so far as to say that the failure to register the FIR constitutes dereliction of duty. Long and short is that if a cognizable offence is disclosed, they have to register an FIR. What the police do is either they water down the sections which are invoked and register it as a non-cognizable complaint, commonly called an NC. Or they simply write back to the complainant saying this is a civil dispute and we can't go into it. Now, there may be a civil dispute, but that does not necessarily exclude criminal liability.
Right.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in the Ramesh Bajar judgment has said this very clearly. The same set of facts may throw up civil liability and criminal liability. But invariably, the police use these sort of excuses to avoid the registration. Why? Number one, there could be pressure from above, don't prosecute this guy. Number two, they may already be have been inspired not to register it by the person against whom it is being filed. The third, of course, could be that every FIR registered means that they have to conduct an investigation, which means it's greater pressure on them. So, their discretions really come only after they have registered the FIR. But as far as registration of the FIR goes, it's mandatory if a cognizable offence is disclosed, and if they don't do it, technically they are acting contrary to judgments where this has been very clearly stated.
But when they do that, the lawyer who's on representing the complainant
Yes.
can very well go to court and point this out and get
The
relief.
lawyer has to first, actually the complainant has to first make a letter to the jurisdictional SP asking him to intervene and direct the PI to register the FIR.
Right.
If that is not done, then under 156(3) of the CRPC, the complainant can go to the judicial magistrate and ask for a direction to the PI to register the FIR. Obviously, the magistrate, when examining such an application, would look at only what the PI is expected to look at when registering the FIR. Whether on a plain reading of the complaint, a cognizable offence is disclosed or not. Many people unfortunately don't take that route to the GMFC. Many people run to their local MLA who really has no statutory power and who also, when he responds to their plea, is thinking of how it impacts him in the next election.
Next election, yes.
A magistrate, on the other hand, is much, in fact, is almost certain to give you justice if you've.
If the facts are clear.
If
yeah.
the facts are clear.
Right. Right.
I look at the judicial setup today as the last bastion of hope.
Right.
And there is a very efficacious remedy under 156(3). But for some reason, many people don't turn to it.
Right. Bosco, don't respond to him specifically,
No,
but
no.
I'm generally saying you
No,
can.
I
also.
will respond to
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
He has given the answer.
Right.
My point is very clear.
Right.
If the officer doesn't take cognizance, there is a remedy. The remedy is the SP. Finally, okay.
Right.
He's something above the maybe above those petty politicians.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
How many? I've been a district SP. Nobody has ever come to me.
With in these kind of cases.
In
Correct.
such cases.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So that's where I'm saying that we are condemned it at the very first level. That the officer has not taken cognizance. What have you done? You have, as he rightly said, they run to the politician.
Right. Right.
Now, if you're going to take a shortcut, our guys at the police station will also take shortcuts in these things.
Right. Right.
Come to the SP, and if the SP doesn't take cognizance, then yes, then you can think. And then there is the court also. Is there. Nobody wants to take this line.
So the onus also lies on the public, right? Correct.
So let's, it's
Right.
very clear. I'm not saying the guy sitting there at the police station is God Almighty, but then after there is a way of dealing with it. And the way of dealing it with going to the politician is the wrong procedure,
Right.
which is not laid down at all. And there is one more, if Ryan has forgotten, the police complaint authority is also there,
Yes.
which is also taking
But does it have teeth?
No. Question is, that's another part of this thing.
Right.
But
Let's address this
yeah,
now.
yeah. Police complaint authority.
Yeah.
Okay, now, with all due respects to all this thing over there, what is his actual duty? He has to inquire whether the police has registered or not. How long do you take it? It has stretched on for months together. That one case. You are going to decide as to whether the officer has done his duty or not, and you expect that officer the complainant comes immediately to the police station and says, register my case. Now, look at this thing. Okay, now that goes on as a trial.
Stretching into months.
I mean, these are not this thing. And finally, the police complaint authority is only a recommendatory thing, right? But here there have been judgment passed as he has to be dismissed. How can you be doing these things? The Constitution, Ryan will be enlighten you very clearly. Who has the right to dismiss or appoint? Is the appointing authority. Who has the right to give a sort of punishment? The appointing authority. If I'm the appointing authority is the DIG for the sub-inspector, that's you cannot take my rights. But here it is happening, bindas, both sides. So it's in a flux. Right now, things are in a flux.
Right.
Nobody knows. Again, the talk comes about, there are some notorious persons who are here, dealings and everything. Very highly they speak about the Hyderabad police. Has the Hyderabad police gone and tackled these people?
No.
There is something called I'm not justifying
Correct,
if
correct,
they're
correct.
not saying.
Correct, you're putting it
but
in
I'm
perspective,
just
yes,
putting
yes.
perspective. There are also other enforcement agencies there
Sure.
around.
Sure, correct. The NCB also needs to do his job, right? Correct.
See, actually, Goa police is not bad. They are as bad as the other police. And the other police are not good. They are also as bad as the Goa police.
As
The
good
whole
as the Goa police, yes.
police system in India is bad.
Yes.
Understood? But
Cyril goes
there
to
is
the
a-
other extreme.
See, I am looking
He's
at
like, forget
holistic
it.
picture.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
I am not
agreed.
interested in Goa police.
Right.
I have already lost hope on them after the 2013 Vasco case.
Yeah, I'll just come to the case first.
I'll
I've
respond
lost
to that.
hope
to that, yes.
because it was such an open and shut case, but
Right.
we failed them. We
Yeah.
failed a small girl. This state has failed a girl. We have not failed the system. We could not give justice to a small school girl. And we can't say that we are a just society, we are a learned or a developed society. You know. But there is one more aspect that we don't, we should study, is the workload that the police are handling day by day. And I look at, the population, because we were discussing and he said we are a small state. We are not a small state. We handle whole year 80 lakh beside our population. But we don't have that many policemen to cater, first of all, to our 16 lakh, 16 or 17, and then we don't have to cater to the remaining tourists to come.
No, what you're saying is true. Look, you're having how many functions in this state? Name it.
Uncontrolled.
And everybody is
And
in bandobast. And
What are you?
correct.
I was DIG in the last 2 months. I just didn't have the time to attend to anything else except you have Sunburn Festival. Massive. All the forces you have to. I mean,
Why?
I don't know why.
Correct. Yes.
Added to that, then you have pension. There is this thing. Okay. Added to that, you have the casinos also functioning day and night. See, I'm not against all this.
Correct.
Have these things, but where is the
But this requires
infrastructure?
We have to have it,
What
but
he
then we have
highlights,
to provide the infrastructure.
Yeah,
no?
that's what I
Police
said. The infrastructure.
Infrastructure we should provide. We
what he
cannot.
highlights, without having said so, is in my opinion, you have to segregate law and order and investigation.
Correct.
You have one set of officers doing investigations, and they do just that. And you have another set that will do law and order, including bandobast and all that, and they do just that.
Right.
But if you expect a man to spend the day finding out who committed a particular murder, and then stand on the side of the road and check which cars are going back and forth, and then stand the next day at some place where some VIPs come from Delhi for a function, they're
Correct.
human beings. You can't
Absolutely
expect them to do the
Yeah.
job of 3 men in the time of 1 man.
Yeah, we'll
So
deep dive
that
into
segregation
this.
also needs to
We'll
happen.
get,
Please
still one
note
second. Yeah.
that the police don't have a time limit in 24 hours for work. They work 24 hours.
Right. True.
Which is the biggest violation of human rights of the policemen themselves.
Yeah.
When they themselves are victims
Yeah.
of human rights violation, don't expect.
Yeah. So I'll come back to
justice
that
from
in the next section. We'll get deep dive into each of the points that Ryan and Cyril raised, which are very, very important. Shweta, I'd like to draw your attention to the Marian Bargov case primarily because it stares us in the face, and a lot of the things that we have discussed now have played out almost like a template, where a criminal complaint was launched, it was passed off as a civil dispute, so completely, and the criminal aspect of it was not touched upon. The complaint is still there. I think the victim or the complainant went to wrote to the SP and wrote to the CM as well. So she has of course taken all the steps, and as things stand, that she's waiting in a hotel room, waiting for justice.
Yeah.
But we'll not go into the civil aspect at all.
Yeah.
We are concerned about the criminal complaint and how it was lodged and what will happen. If you could just elaborate a little bit,
So
since
let's
you're
leave
closely
the
connected to
property
Yeah.
aside, right?
Yes.
Let's leave the property
The
aside.
only thing I'll say, Shweta, without the property, there would not be any criminality.
No,
Yeah, that's
no,
correct.
but I
Yeah.
agree. I agree totally.
yeah.
But who it belongs to, she's been staying there since 2009.
Right,
Is
right.
all I know.
Right.
Now it's really muddled up.
Muddled
Okay.
up, yeah.
A week before, I just learned this morning actually. A week before people came into Marianne's house and sort of took it over, she had overheard Panchayat and neighbors talking about the fact that some people had come to look at the fields behind her house where a road could be built so that this area could be developed, I don't know, with a hotel or whatever, you know. So it's not just a personal case.
Right.
It's also, it might just be a larger case,
Right,
really,
right,
you know.
right.
Currently, she's in a hotel room till 13th of this month, the case will be heard. Now, the case has been going on from 28th, every day they have been increasing. The bill she got this morning from the security people, because there were 5 security people who were from the other side who were very dangerous. So she asked a friend to hire 2 security people. Now she has a bill of 2,05,000 to pay for that. She's paying a rent. Her clothes, her jewelry, her everything. Imagine, I mean, this is a life, right? 2009 means we have 13 years of life inside that house. And they have just gone and broken it in. So just the whole system of it, for me, it seems like, okay, is this truly Banana Republic? And like Cyril said, yeah, probably we should just say that we are probably ruled by criminals. Then we'll understand how to operate, you know, and it's fine. But to say that we have a justice system and this happens in front of your eyes, I mean, for me, it is the same thing, right? It cannot be happening on our land, this kind of injustice. And speaking about, you rightly said about the Hyderabad police, they do not arrest anyone of meaning from the drug trade. They only arrest small-time dealers, you know, who have a very small role to play. They got into it because they had to fend for their money or whatever was the case. But not the kingpins are having a great time, you
Right,
know.
right.
So you're right that, you know, there's no police that is away from the rot.
Right, right. Okay, we'll take a very short break now and come back in about 2 minutes. Let's get water for everybody. Not intake, take a break.